The air in the sea wing tastes like wet copper and old, forgotten teeth. It is a thick, stagnant soup that clings to the back of my throat, smelling of cardboard boxes that have spent 50 years absorbing the damp of a basement that should not exist. My flashlight beam is a pathetic, yellow needle stitching through a shroud of velvet dark. This place, the Iron Vault, does not just store old furniture and tax records. It hoards the things people are too terrified to throw away but too haunted to keep in their homes. I am the high priest of this graveyard of junk, a man paid in minimum wage and stale cigarettes to ensure the dead stay buried in their corrugated steel coffins. The flickering starts at exactly 2 a.m. It is a rhythmic stutter, a jagged strobe that turns the long, concrete hallway into a series of disconnected snapshots. Frame 1, the floor is empty. Frame 2, a shadow seems to stretch an inch too far. Frame 3, the darkness resets. It is the kind of light that makes you doubt the continuity of your own existence. It is not a mechanical failure. It is a nervous breakdown in the electrical grid. The hum of the ballasts is a low-frequency moan, a static hiss that crawls up the back of my neck like 1,000 frozen spiders. This is the sound of the void trying to speak through the copper wiring. I reach for the clipboard hanging by the heavy fire door. It is bound in leather that feels uncomfortably like human skin, waxy, cold, and pockmarked. This is the forbidden protocol. Most units require a simple padlock check. Unit 112 has a leak? Call the owner. Unit 305 smells like rotting meat? Call the police. But Unit 404? Unit 404 has its own set of laws, physics, and consequences. The page for 404 is stained with something dark and oily that never quite dries. The instructions are written in a hand that was clearly shaking, the ink bleeding into the paper like a fresh bruise. Rule 1. Do not approach Unit 404 if the lights are steady. Rule 2. If the humming stops, hold your breath until your lungs burn. Rule 3. Under no circumstances is the door to be opened. Not for fire. Not for flood. Not for the sounds of a loved one crying out your name from the other side. I look down the hallway toward the end of Wing D. Unit 404 is there, tucked into the furthest corner where the shadows are thickest. The corrugated steel of the door is rusted, a deep, necrotic orange that looks like dried blood on a scab. There is no lock on it. There is no handle. Instead, the edges are sealed with heavy, silver tape that seems to pulse with a faint, internal heat. The air around the unit is warped, shimmering like heat haze on a summer highway, but the air is freezing. It is a cold that goes deeper than the skin. It is a cold that settles into the marrow, turning the blood to slush. The static in my ears grows louder. It is a grinding sound, the noise of tectonic plates shifting, or maybe the sound of teeth being crushed in a giant stone mortar. And then, the smell hits me. It is the smell of a rotting sea, of salt and decay and something ancient that has been trapped in a small space for far too long. It is a visceral, cloying stench that makes my stomach turn. I lean against the concrete wall, the rough surface scraping against my shoulder through my thin uniform. The wall feels alive. It feels like a ribcage, vibrating with a heartbeat that is not mine. Then, the first sound comes from behind the door of 404. It is not a scream. Not yet. It is a wet, rhythmic thud. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Like a heavy piece of meat being swung against a metal sheet. It is the sound of something large and boneless trying to find a way out. I check my watch. 2:14 a.m. The protocol says I must stay within 10 feet of the door during the activation phase. I have to witness it. I have to be the anchor that keeps this thing tied to our reality, even as every fiber of my being screams at me to run until my heart bursts. The flickering intensifies. The hallway is a blur of black and white. Static begins to leak from the overhead speakers, the ones meant for paging customers. But there are no customers here. There is only the void. The static resolves into a voice, 1,000 voices, all speaking at once in a language that sounds like glass breaking. It is a jagged, discordant noise that hacks at my sanity. I pull my collar up, trying to hide from the sound, but it is inside my head now. It is the sound of the world unraveling at the seams. The thudding stops. A silence follows that is heavier than the noise. It is a vacuum that sucks the air out of the hallway. I can hear the blood rushing through my own veins, a frantic, panicked river. And then, the screaming starts. It begins as a low whistle, a thin reed of sound that spirals upward into a jagged, throat-tearing howl. It is not one person. It is a chorus of the damned. I hear my mother's voice. I hear the girl who broke my heart in high school. I hear the sound of a child begging for mercy. The screaming is visceral, raw, and wet. It sounds like lungs being turned inside out. It is a sound of pure, unadulterated agony that defies the limits of the human throat. My hand drifts toward the silver tape on the door. My fingers itch to rip it away, to end the suffering on the other side. Don't do it. The words of the protocol are a mantra in my mind. The scream is a lure. The pain is a mask. I look at the gap at the bottom of the door. Something is oozing out. It is not blood. It is a thick, black ichor that glows with a faint, sickly violet light. It moves with a purpose, snaking across the concrete toward my boots. It looks like liquid static, a piece of the void that has taken on a physical form. Where it touches the floor, the concrete bubbles and hisses, dissolving into a fine, grey ash. I back away, my heels clicking on the floor, but the sound is swallowed by the cacophony from Unit 404. The screaming reaches a crescendo, a high-pitched shriek that shatters the glass of my flashlight. I am plunged into a world of flickering grey and absolute black. In the strobe light, I see the door of 404 bulge outward. The steel groans, the rivets popping like gunshots. Something is pushing from the inside, something with too many limbs and not enough skin. The silver tape stretches, glowing brighter, holding the nightmare back by a fraction of an inch. I drop to my knees, covering my ears, but the sound is a physical force. It is a weight that presses down on my shoulders, trying to crush me into the floor. I smell the rotting earth again, the smell of an open grave under a full moon. The static in the air is so thick I can taste it, a metallic, bitter flavor that coats my tongue. I realize then that the storage facility is not here to keep things in. It is a filter. It is a way to bleed off the pressure of a reality that is too full of horror to be contained. The screaming suddenly cuts off. The silence that follows is even more terrifying. It is the silence of a predator that has just realized you are standing right behind it. I look up, my eyes straining in the dim, flickering light. The door to Unit 404 is no longer bulging. It is perfectly still. The black ichor has retreated, leaving only a scorched mark on the floor. I check my watch. 2:30 a.m. The protocol is over. The activation phase has ended. I stand up, my legs shaking so violently I almost collapse. My uniform is damp with a cold sweat that smells like ozone and fear. I walk back toward the security desk, not looking back. I know if I look back, I will see the void staring back through the cracks in the steel. This is my job. I guard the things that cannot be destroyed. I listen to the screams so the rest of the world can sleep in blissful, ignorant silence. But as I sit in my chair, watching the grainy monitors and the endless, flickering halls, I know one thing for certain. One day, the silver tape will fail. One day, the static will become a song I cannot stop singing. And on that day, I will not be the guard anymore. I will be just another voice in the chorus, screaming from behind the door of Unit 404, waiting for the next poor soul to walk down the hall and listen to the rotting truth of the void. The blue light of the security monitors is a virus. It gets under the skin, turns the blood into something cold and thin, like diluted ink. I sit in the booth, the only living thing in a graveyard of cardboard boxes and moth-eaten memories, watching the feed of Hallway 4. It is bathed in that same cool blue shadow, a tint that makes the concrete look like the bottom of a stagnant pool. My eyes always drift back to it. Unit 404. It sits there, a steel-faced monolith, refusing to be just another number in the sequence. Most people see a door. I see a mouth, clamped shut, chewing on something that refuses to die. The manual is a joke, a thin stack of coffee-stained lies bound in plastic. It tells me to ignore the sounds. It tells me that the structural integrity of the facility can lead to auditory hallucinations. But the structural integrity of this place is as sound as a tombstone. The sounds don't come from the pipes. They don't come from the settling of the foundation. They come from the gap beneath the door of 404, a thin sliver of darkness that seems to drink the light around it. Tonight, the curiosity is a physical weight in my chest, a stone that grows heavier with every tick of the industrial clock on the wall. I find myself wondering not just what is inside, but why it wants me to hear it. The curiosity is not a clean thing. It is not the bright, inquisitive spark of a child. It is a jagged, rotting thing, like a splinter under a fingernail. It demands attention. I stand up, the vinyl chair groaning in protest, a sound that echoes through the empty lobby like a dying gasp. I grab my flashlight, though the batteries feel light and hollow in my hand. I step out of the booth and into the cooling blue shadows of the corridor. The air here is different. It smells of old ozone and the sweet, cloying scent of wet cardboard left to fester in a basement. My boots make a rhythmic sound against the polished concrete, a hollow beat that feels like a countdown. Hallway 1 is silent. Hallway 2 smells of mothballs. Hallway 3 is where the shadows start to stretch, elongating into thin, needle-like shapes that point toward the end of the building. And then there is Hallway 4. The lighting here is failed, stuck in a permanent state of dim, sapphire twilight. The motion sensors click as I walk, but the lights don't turn yellow or white. They stay blue. They stay cold. I reach the door of Unit 404. Up close, the metal isn't smooth. It's pitted and scarred, as if something on the other side has been trying to write a message with its teeth. I lean my head against the cool steel. The static is there, but it's no longer just noise. It's a texture. It feels like sandpaper rubbing against the inside of my skull. It's a jagged, visceral vibration that makes my teeth ache. I close my eyes, and the blue light of the hallway seeps through my eyelids, painting my internal vision in shades of bruised indigo. I hear a voice. Not a human voice, but an echo of one, processed through 1,000 layers of white noise. It sounds like a secret being told in a crowded room where everyone else is screaming. It's a song of the void, a melody composed of missed opportunities and the silence of the grave. My hand reaches for the latch. The metal is freezing, a sharp bite against my palm that reminds me I'm still alive, though I feel less like a man and more like a ghost with every passing second. The curiosity is screaming now, louder than the static. What lies in the center of the rotting truth? Is it a person? Is it a thing? Or is it just a hole in the universe, a place where the logic of the world has frayed into nothingness? I think of the guard who worked here before me. They found his uniform in the break room, neatly folded, but the man was gone. They said he walked out. I think he just walked in. I think he heard the song and realized his own voice was the missing chord. I can feel the static crawling up my arm, a tingling sensation that feels like 1,000 insects moving under the surface of my skin. The void isn't an empty space. It's a crowded one. It's filled with the echoes of everything that has ever been lost or forgotten. Unit 404 is the drain at the bottom of the world, and I am the water circling the edge. The blue shadows seem to thicken around me, turning into something physical, something viscous. I am drowning in the air, my lungs burning with the scent of ancient dust and the metallic tang of fear. I press my ear harder against the door. The screaming has stopped, replaced by a wet, rhythmic thumping. It's the sound of a heart, but it's too slow, too heavy. It sounds like a heart made of wet clay. I want to see it. I want to see the thing that beats in the dark. I want to know if it looks like me. The curiosity is no longer a question, it's a command. The static is becoming a song I can almost hum, a low, guttural vibration that resonates in my marrow. I look down at my shadow. In the blue light, it looks detached. It looks like it's trying to peel itself off the floor and crawl under the door. Maybe that's how it starts. Maybe you lose your shadow first, then your name, then the memory of the sun. I am losing the ability to care about the rules. The manual is back in the booth, a relic of a world that no longer applies to me. Here, in the blue-stained silence of Hallway 4, the only truth is the door and the static behind it. The sound changes again. It's a scratching now. Long, slow strokes against the interior of the metal door. It sounds like someone is trying to draw a map of the void using their fingernails. I imagine the fingers on the other side. Are they long and pale? Are they just bones wrapped in the memory of skin? The jagged edges of the sound tear at my composure, but I don't move. I can't move. I am pinned to the spot by the sheer, terrifying weight of my own need to know. I think of the word security. It's a lie. There is no security here. There is only the weight. We are all just placeholders, temporary guards for a permanent darkness. The storage units are not for furniture. They are for the things we cannot live with but cannot bear to destroy. And 404 is for the thing that cannot be contained. It is a rotting truth, a truth that eats through the walls and the floor, a truth that hums in the blue shadows and waits for someone to get curious enough to listen. My fingers wrap around the padlock. It's heavy, a dead weight of iron that feels like it's been there since the building was forged in some dark, subterranean fire. I shouldn't have the key. The key shouldn't even exist. But I feel it in my pocket, A cold, sharp shape that has been burning a hole in my thigh all night. Where did it come from? I don't remember being given a key to 404. But here it is, a silver sliver of betrayal resting in my palm. The air in the hallway begins to shimmer. The blue light fluctuates, pulsing like a dying star. The static in my head reaches a crescendo, a roar of white noise that blots out the sound of my own breathing. I am standing on the precipice of a great, dark ocean, and the door is the only thing keeping me from the plunge. But I don't want to stay on the shore. I want the cold. I want the silence. I want to be part of the static song. I slide the key into the lock. It fits perfectly, as if it were grown from the same metal. The click is the loudest thing I have ever heard, a gunshot in a cathedral. The sound echoes down the hall, bouncing off the other units, waking the ghosts of old boxes and discarded lives. The lock falls away, hitting the floor with a dull thud that is swallowed by the blue shadows. The door is no longer locked. It is merely closed. A thin line of darkness begins to bleed from the seam. It's darker than the blue light, darker than the shadows. It's a void black that has a weight to it, a pressure that pushes against my chest. The smell of the rotting truth becomes overwhelming now. It's the smell of a world that has ended but forgot to stop existing. It's the smell of the static made manifest. I put my hand on the handle. My curiosity is a fever now, a burning heat that contrasts with the freezing metal. I am going to open it. I am going to see the chorus. I am going to hear the song from the inside. The monitors back in the booth are probably showing an empty hallway now. They are probably showing a ghost standing in front of a door that shouldn't be opened. But they are wrong. I am more real now than I have ever been. I am the witness. I am the ear that listens to the void. The static is no longer a sound. It's a physical presence, a cold wind that blows from the crack in the door, carrying with it the whispers of everyone who ever stood where I'm standing. They are calling to me. They aren't screaming in pain. They are screaming in recognition. They are welcoming me home. The blue light fades as the door begins to swing inward, the hinges screaming a jagged, visceral protest that sounds like a name. My name. I step forward. The concrete floor feels like it's dissolving under my boots, turning into the same shifting, unstable static that fills the room beyond. The transition is slow, a gradual sinking into the cool blue shadow of the end. I don't look back. There is nothing to look back to. The hallway, the booth, the manual, the sun, they are all just static now. They are just the noise I had to tune out to hear the song. The song is beautiful. It's a chorus of 1,000 voices, all singing the same rotting truth. It's a song about the void, about the space between the stars, about the silence at the end of every sentence. I can feel my own throat beginning to vibrate. I can feel the words forming in my mouth, words that have no letters, words that are made of pure, jagged light and ancient decay. I am not the guard anymore. I am the echo. As the door of Unit 404 swings wide, the blue light of the hallway is swallowed by the absolute dark of the interior. But it's not empty. It's full. It's full of the people who got curious. It's full of the screams that were never heard and the truths that were never told. I step into the darkness, and the door begins to close behind me, drawn by a force that is as inevitable as gravity. The last thing I see is the blue shadow on the floor of the hallway, a thin, flickering ghost of a world I no longer inhabit. And then there is only the song. There is only the static. There is only the rotting truth of the void, and my voice, joining the chorus, waiting for the next set of boots to click against the concrete, waiting for the next soul to wonder what lies behind the door of Unit 404. The static is my skin now. The void is my breath. And the song is everything. The concrete doesn't just hold the weight of the building. It drinks the silence, pulling the cold from the earth and threading it into my marrow. I am a ghost in a blue uniform, a shadow with a badge that shines like a dead eye under the stuttering fluorescent tubes of the Sector 4 corridor. The hallway is a throat, long and narrow and lined with corrugated steel teeth that groan under the pressure of the night. Here, the air tastes of oxidized copper and the slow, wet rot of things forgotten in the dark, wedding dresses turning to yellowed bone, photographs melting into ink-black sludge, memories calcifying into something heavy and jagged. My boots don't click against the floor anymore. They squash. They move through a layer of reality that has gone soft, like fruit left too long in a cellar. The strobe light overhead is the heartbeat of this dying place. It isn't a malfunction. It is a shudder, a jagged blade of white fire that slices the world into distinct, agonizing frames. In the light, I see the hallway as it should be, sterile, industrial, empty. In the dark between the flashes, I see the static. It clings to the corners like black cobwebs. It drips from the ceiling in thick, viscous ropes. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be standing in front of Unit 404. The manual, the one bound in skin-colored leather that smelled of a funeral parlor, was very specific. Do not approach. Do not linger. And above all, do not open the door, even if the sounds from within make you want to claw your own ears off. But the screams are different tonight. They aren't just sounds. They are physical things, wet and heavy, pressing against the inner side of the steel door like a tide of meat. They are muffled, yes, but not by the metal. They sound like they are coming from behind a mile of wet earth, or from the bottom of a well filled with thick, black oil. It is a rhythmic, guttural sound, a choir of voices that have forgotten how to be human, reduced to a singular, vibrating chord of pure, unadulterated dread. The strobe flashes. White. The door is closed. The strobe dies. Black. The door is still closed, but the static is thicker now, swirling like a storm of dead gnats around the handle. I can feel the scream in my teeth. It's a low-frequency hum that turns my blood to slush. It's the sound of a lung being forced to breathe liquid lead. It's the sound of 1,000 names being erased at once. I lean my forehead against the cold corrugated surface, and for a second, the metal feels soft. It feels like skin. It's warm. It's pulsing. Behind the door, something is wet. Something is sliding. I hear the sound of a tongue the size of a carpet dragging across the floor. The scream shifts then. It stops being a collective wail and turns into a singular, piercing note, a child's voice, maybe, or perhaps just the memory of one, being shredded by a dull blade. It calls out not for help, but for acknowledgement. It wants me to witness the rot. The strobe flashes again, a violent burst of artificial lightning that leaves purple spots dancing in my vision. In that fraction of a second, I see the seams of the world fraying. The edges of Unit 404 aren't straight lines anymore. They are jagged, toothy margins that bite into the space around them. The void isn't just behind the door, it's leaking through the rivets. It smells of ozone and old, stale sweat. It smells of the moment just before a car crash. I try to pull back, to turn my heels and run toward the security desk where the monitors show nothing but grey snow, but my feet are rooted. The concrete has become a part of me, or I have become a part of it. We are both just layers of sediment in this temple of the discarded. The screams reach a crescendo, a cacophony of shattering glass and tearing silk. It's a sound that shouldn't be able to exist in a space this small. It's too big. It's the sound of a universe being folded into a box that is too small for its dimensions. I feel the static beginning to itch under my skin. It starts at my fingertips, a buzzing, electric numbing that moves up my arms like a swarm of parasites. The void is hungry, and Unit 404 is its mouth. The muffled nature of the screams is the only thing keeping my mind from liquefying entirely, a thin veil of reality acting as a filter for the madness on the other side. But the veil is tearing. I can see the light from the strobe catching on the fraying threads of the atmosphere. Every flash of the strobe reveals a new horror in the gaps. Between the seconds, I see hands, hundreds of them, pressing against the walls of the hallway from the inside out, their fingerprints leaving bruises on the air. I see the shadow of something that has too many joints, crouching in the darkness just behind my left shoulder, its breath smelling of salt and ancient dust. The screams are no longer coming from the unit. They are coming from the walls themselves. They are coming from the vents. They are coming from the very marrow of my bones. I realized then that the rule wasn't to protect me from what was inside Unit 404. The rule was to protect the world from the realization that we are all just contents of a larger, darker locker, waiting to be forgotten. The light flickers, a dying gasp of electricity, and stays off for a heartbeat too long. In that absolute obsidian, the screaming stops. The silence that follows is worse. It's a heavy, pressurized silence that makes my eardrums throb. I can hear the static moving now. It sounds like dry leaves skittering across a grave. It sounds like the whisper of a secret you were never meant to hear. It's the sound of my own voice, though my lips aren't moving. It's the sound of the chorus I am about to join. The door to Unit 404 doesn't need to open. It has already consumed the space I occupy. The metal is no longer cold. It's part of my chest. The rivets are my buttons. The lock is my heart. The strobe gives one final, desperate burst of light, a scream of white fire that illuminates the hallway for a final time. In that flash, There is no security guard. There is no hallway. There is only the jagged, visceral reality of the void, a landscape of obsidian teeth and static clouds where the screams are the only music. The rotting truth is that there was never anything behind the door because the door was just a mirror. The unit was always empty, and yet it was always full of us. My voice is the one that is muffled now. I am the one scratching at the corrugated steel, hoping for the next set of boots to click, no, to squash against the concrete. I am the one waiting for the next soul to wonder why they were told to stay away. The static is my skin now. It's a shimmering, grey coat of non-existence that hums with the energy of 1,000 dead stars. The void is my breath, a cold, empty vacuum that tastes of nothing and everything. And the song, the muffled, agonizing, beautiful song of Unit 404, is everything. It is the beginning of the rot and the end of the light. I wait in the dark between the strobe flashes, a silhouette of jagged edges and hollow promises, watching the handle turn in a hand that no longer belongs to me. The screams aren't coming from the unit anymore. They are coming from the future. They are coming for you. Don't open the door. Don't look at the light. Just listen to the static and let the void take the rest. It's easier that way. It's so much quieter once you stop trying to breathe. The silence is a physical weight now, a tombstone carved from the very air I am struggling to pull into my lungs. My flashlight is a dying lung, its beam a sickly amber needle trying to stitch together a reality that is rapidly unraveling at the seams. I am standing in the throat of Corridor C, where the shadows do not merely sit, they pulse. They have a heartbeat, a slow, wet thrumming that matches the frantic percussion in my own chest. The air here tastes of copper and old pennies, of ozone and the damp, cloying rot of things that should have stayed buried in the earth. I look down at my hands, and in the jittering light, they look like pale, translucent wax. I can see the blue veins underneath, twitching like trapped worms. The door to Unit 404 is no longer a door. It has become a boundary, a thin, vibrating membrane between the world I know and a geography of pure, unadulterated entropy. The corrugated steel is weeping. A dark, viscous fluid thicker than oil, darker than the absence of light seeps from the rivets, pooling at my boots in a mirror that reflects a sky I've never seen. Every time the flashlight beam brushes against that metal, the static in my head spikes. It is a jagged, white-hot noise, the sound of 1,000 radios screaming between stations, a cacophony of lost voices and forgotten prayers. It is the sound of the future arriving, and the future is a mouth. I should turn back. The manual, the one with the bloodstains on the margins and the frantic, handwritten warnings, told me that once the screaming stops, the breathing begins. But my feet are not my own. They are heavy, leaden things, dragged forward by a gravity that pulls not at my body, but at my very soul. The void inside 404 is hungry. It is a vacuum of existence, a hollow point in the universe that demands to be filled. I reach out. My fingers tremble, a frantic staccato against the cold, wet iron of the handle. The cold isn't just a temperature, it's a predatory force. It bites through my gloves, through my skin, settling deep into the marrow of my bones until I am nothing but a shivering cage of ice. The lock doesn't click. It dissolves. Under the touch of my hand, the metal softens, turning into something like wet cardboard, then like rotting silk. The door doesn't swing on hinges. It peels back like a scab. And then, there is the smell. It hits me like a physical blow to the sternum. It is the scent of 1 billion years of stagnation. It is the smell of the first breath of a corpse and the last breath of a star. It is the smell of wet hair, scorched plastic, and the sweet, cloying musk of lilies left to liquefy in a funeral parlor. I retch, the bile rising hot and sour in my throat, but there is no air to catch my breath. There is only the static. I aim the flashlight into the breach. The beam should hit the back wall. It should illuminate boxes of old tax returns, moth-eaten winter coats, or the discarded furniture of a life moved on. But the light does not find a wall. It stretches out into an impossible distance, a narrow golden thread lost in an ocean of ink. The beam becomes a solid thing, a rod of dust mote suspended in a vacuum, and as I watch, the shadows at the edges of the light begin to reach back. They are long, spindly fingers of negative space, stretching out from the corners of the unit, wrapping around the beam of my flashlight, squeezing the light until it flickers and dims. In the center of that vast, impossible dark, something is moving. It is not a shape I can define. To look at it is to feel my brain stutter, a cognitive dissonance that makes my eyes leak hot, salty tears. It is a shifting geometry of meat and static. It is a tall, jagged silhouette that flickers in and out of existence like a bad film strip. It has too many limbs, or perhaps none at all, and where a face should be, there is only a pulsing, rhythmic glow, a dull, bruised purple that hums with the frequency of a dying heart. The screaming starts again, but it isn't coming from the thing in the room. It's coming from the walls. It's coming from the floorboards. It's coming from the very atoms of the air. It's my mother's voice calling me home for dinner. It's the sound of my first love whispering a secret I can't remember. It's the sound of my own voice, 40 years from now, begging for a mercy that will never come. The screams are layers of time being torn apart, a temporal gore that splashes against my consciousness. I try to close my eyes, but the darkness behind my eyelids is worse. Behind my eyes, I can see the unit. I can see the void. I can see the thing standing in the center of my own life, reaching out to snuff the candle of my identity. I am falling. I haven't moved my feet, but the floor has become a liquid, a dark sea of tar that is pulling me down into the belly of the facility. The narrow beam of my flashlight is the only thing left of the world above. It is a tiny, flickering star in a universe of absolute night. I can feel the static filling my lungs, replacing the oxygen, turning my blood into cold, grey noise. My heart is no longer beating. It is vibrating, a frantic hum that matches the frequency of the door. Don't open the door, the voice in my head repeats, but it is too late. The door was never just a piece of steel. The door was the limit of my understanding, and I have stepped beyond it. I am in the throat of the future now. I can see the rows of units stretching out into eternity, each one a cell in a hive of suffering, each one containing a different flavor of the void. And 404 is the heart of it. It is the engine. I try to scream, but the sound is swallowed before it can leave my lips. It is added to the chorus, a tiny, fresh note in the symphony of the damned. The flashlight finally dies. The amber glow fades into a dull red ember before winking out completely. And in that final, absolute darkness, I realize the truth. The screaming didn't stop because the pain ended. The screaming stopped because the silence finally learned how to speak. It is whispering to me now. It is telling me that the light was the lie. The light was the thin, fragile skin over the reality of the rot. It tells me to let go of the handle, to let go of my name, to let go of the frantic, useless rhythm of my breath. It's so much easier this way. The cold isn't an enemy anymore. It's a shroud. It's a heavy, comfortable blanket of entropy. I can feel my skin merging with the corrugated steel, my nerves becoming the wiring of the facility, my memories becoming the static that fills the empty spaces between the stars. There is no more security guard. There is no more Unit 404. There is only the breach. There is only the long, dark corridor that leads to the end of everything. I am the silence that waits for the next shift. I am the shadow that dances in the corner of the new guy's eye. I am the static in the headset. And when you come down here, when you hear the future screaming for you, don't be afraid. Don't fight the dark. Just turn off your light. Just listen to the void. It's so much quieter once you stop trying to be real. It's so much more peaceful once you realize that the screams were always yours. The air is thick with the scent of old, dead things, a heavy, velvet weight that settles into my pores. I can feel the rot moving up my arms, a slow, methodical crawl of numbness that turns my flesh into something grey and grainy. I look toward the exit, but there is no exit. There are only more units, more numbers that don't make sense, more doors that lead to rooms that haven't been built yet. The facility is expanding, breathing, growing like a cancer in the dark. The thing in the center of 404 is closer now. I can feel its heat, not a warm heat, but a searing, freezing burn that blisters the soul. It doesn't have a shape, but it has an intent. It is the architect of the static. It is the thing that waits when all the lights in the world go out. And as I drift into the black, as my last thought dissolves into the white noise of the universe, I see the light of another flashlight. Far off, at the end of a corridor that shouldn't exist. Someone else is coming. Someone else is walking toward the scream. I try to warn them. I try to pull the air into my static-filled lungs to shout, to tell them to run, to tell them to burn this place to the ground and never look back. But all that comes out is a soft, wet hiss. All that comes out is the sound of a door closing in an empty house. I am the shadow now. I am the warning that no one hears. I am the security of the void, and my watch has only just begun. The blackness is absolute, a crushing depth that swallows even the memory of the sun. There is no time here, only the slow, rhythmic expansion of the dark, and the knowledge that 404 is never truly closed. It is only waiting for the next light to flicker and die. I can feel the floor vibrating with a new rhythm now, a heavy, dragging sound. Steps. Someone is walking. Their boots click on the concrete, a sharp, lonely sound in the vastness. They don't know yet. They don't know that the air they are breathing is already dead. They don't know that the light they carry is just a beacon for the things that live in the marrow of the walls. I want to reach out and touch them, to feel the warmth of a living hand one last time, but I know what would happen. My touch would be a contagion of silence. My touch would be the end of their world. So I stay in the shadows of 404. I become part of the architecture of the breach. I watch as the needle of their flashlight cuts through the dark, searching for something that can't be found, searching for a reason for the screaming. They are close now. I can hear their breathing short, shallow, terrified. It's a beautiful sound. It's a sound of a life that still thinks it has a choice. They stop in front of the door. I can see the reflection of their light on the weeping metal. I can see their hand reaching for the handle. In the static, I find a voice. It's not my voice anymore, but it's the only one I have left. I lean close to the gap where the door used to be, where the reality is thinnest. I whisper into the ear of the universe, a sound like dry leaves skittering across a grave. I tell them what the void told me. I tell them that it's easier to stop breathing. I tell them that the dark is kind. And as the handle turns, as the breach opens once more to swallow the world, I feel a flicker of something like joy. Not because of the suffering, but because I won't be alone in the static anymore. We are all just echoes in Unit 404, waiting for the light to fail, waiting for the future to finally arrive and take us home into the nothingness. The metal groans one last time, a sound of absolute finality, and then the world is gone. There is only the static. There is only the void. There is only the beautiful, terrifying peace of the end. And in the dark, I wait. I wait for you. I wait for the sound of your footsteps. I wait for the moment you realize that the door was never locked from the outside. It was locked from within. The lock didn't click. It didn't slide. It didn't offer the resistance of tumblers meeting a key. It groaned. It was the sound of a dry hip bone snapping in a cold room, a brittle, necrotic percussion that vibrated through my teeth and settled in the soft meat of my brain. I shouldn't have been there. I should have stayed in the booth, staring at the grayscale monitors, drowning my senses in the lukewarm dregs of gas station coffee and the hum of the cooling fans. But the screaming had changed. It wasn't the jagged, high-pitched wail of a human throat anymore. It had become a frequency, a low-thrumming vibration that turned the concrete beneath my boots into something fluid, something unsettled. The emergency lights kicked in then, but they weren't the white, antiseptic glow of a standard malfunction. They were blood, a thick, rhythmic, pulsing crimson that flooded the corridor, turning the rows of corrugated steel doors into a series of closing ribcages. The red didn't just illuminate the hallway, it stained it. It felt heavy on my skin, like a wet wool blanket soaked in copper and salt. In this light, the dust motes dancing in the air looked like tiny, glowing embers of burnt skin. My shadow stretched out before me, a long, distorted charcoal smear that seemed to be trying to detach itself from my heels, clawing at the floor in a silent, desperate attempt to flee back toward the exit. I stared at the door to 404. It wasn't metal anymore. It was a scab. A massive, rectangular crust of oxidized iron and something darker, something that smelled of wet fur and old, forgotten cellar stairs. The static began then. It wasn't coming from my radio. My radio was dead, a plastic husk clipped to my belt that felt like a lead weight. The static was coming from the walls. It was the sound of a million insects grinding their mandibles together in perfect, terrifying unison. It was the sound of reality fraying at the edges, the white noise of a universe that had forgotten how to hold its own shape. The panic wasn't a sudden shock. It was a slow, rising tide of bile. It started in my gut and worked its way up, a cold, oily sensation that made my lungs feel too small for my chest. I tried to breathe, but the air was thick with the scent of ozone and rotting peaches. Every inhalation felt like swallowing needles. I reached out, my hand trembling so violently that my fingernails clattered against the door handle. I wanted to turn back. I wanted to run until my heart burst and my legs gave out, but the corridor behind me had changed. The geometry was wrong. The exit sign was a mile away, a tiny, bleeding speck of light at the end of a throat of shifting shadows. There was no way out. There was only the door. Inside 404, the screaming stopped. The silence that followed was worse. It was a vacuum. It sucked the pressure out of the room, making my ears pop and my eyes ache in their sockets. And then, the voice. It wasn't a voice. It was a thought that wasn't mine, forced into my skull like a rusted nail. It spoke in the language of wet earth and dying stars. It told me about the tenant. It told me about the thing that had been waiting since before the concrete was poured, since before the foundations were dug, since before the earth was anything more than a cooling cinder in the dark. The unspeakable tenant. It didn't have a face. It didn't have a name. It was a collection of hungers wrapped in a thin, translucent skin of human memory. It was the reason for the rules. It was the reason we never looked too closely at the logs. It was the reason the facility was built here, on this specific patch of cursed, hollow ground. The tenant wasn't living in the unit. The unit was the tenant. The walls were its skin. The rows of lockers were its teeth. And I was standing right in the center of its open maw. I gripped the handle. The metal felt hot, then freezing, then like nothing at all, as if my hand were passing through a cloud of static. I pulled. The door didn't swing open on hinges. It peeled back like a healing wound. The red light from the hallway flooded into the dark interior, but the darkness didn't recede. It fought back. It was a thick, viscous void that seemed to swallow the light, chewing on the crimson glow until it turned into a sickly, bruised purple. I saw it then, not with my eyes, but with the primitive, lizard-brain part of me that knows when a predator is staring from the tall grass. It was a silhouette that defied perspective. It was tall, too tall for the room, its head tilted at an angle that would have snapped a human neck. Its limbs were long, spindly things that ended in fingers that trailed off into smoke and shadow. It didn't move. It just existed. It was a hole in the world, a puncture wound in the fabric of the mundane. The panic finally broke me. I screamed, but no sound came out. My throat was full of that same grey static, that dry, choking dust of the void. I turned to run, but the floor was gone. There was only the red light, the pulsing, rhythmic heartbeat of the facility as it began to digest me. I could feel my memories slipping away, dissolving into the static. My mother's face, the smell of rain on asphalt, the sound of my own name, they were all being bleached white by the presence of the thing in 404. I realized then that the warning wasn't for the people outside. It wasn't to keep the curious away. It was a plea for mercy. If you hear the screaming, you are already part of it. If you stand before the door, you have already been invited. The lock was never there to keep the tenant in. It was there to give us the illusion that we were safe on the other side. But there is no other side. There is only the facility. There is only the red light. There is only the unspeakable tenant, waiting for the next shift to begin, waiting for the next set of eyes to peer into the dark and realize that the void isn't empty. It's hungry. My vision is failing now. The red is turning to black, but not the black of a dark room. It's the black of a deep, oceanic trench, where the pressure is enough to turn bone to powder. I can feel the tenant leaning closer. I can smell the ancient, dry rot of its breath. It's not going to kill me. Death is too simple, too merciful for a place like this. It's going to wear me. It's going to slip into my skin like a hand into a glove and walk out of this unit, using my feet to pace the halls, using my eyes to watch the monitors, using my mouth to scream when the next guard comes down the hall. The static is loud now. It's a symphony. It's a choir of a billion voices all whispering the same thing, over and over, until the words lose their meaning and become just a vibration in the marrow. They are saying that the door is open. They are saying that the lease is up. They are saying that it's time to pay the rent in blood and bone. And as the last of the red light flickers out, as I feel those long, shadow fingers reach out to stitch themselves into my nervous system, I realize the most terrifying truth of all. I was never the guard. I was the security. I was the lock. And now that I've been broken, there's nothing left to keep the 404 from becoming the world. The screaming you hear isn't mine anymore. It's yours. It's everyone's. It's the sound of the void finally finding its voice. And it sounds exactly like the turning of a key in a lock that was never meant to be opened. The hallway is stretching again. The red light is pulsing faster, a panicked heartbeat of a dying god. I can see the other doors now, the endless rows of units, each one a cell, each one a rib. Are they all like 404? Is the whole world just a series of storage units for things that should have stayed buried? My hands are shaking, but they aren't my hands anymore. They are longer, paler, the skin stretched tight over knuckles that look like jagged stones. I look down and I see the floor, but I also see through it. I see the layers of the earth, the veins of rock and water, and deeper still, the sleeping giants that dream of fire. The panic is a physical thing now, a cold knot in the center of my being that won't untie. I want to close the door. I want to slam it shut and bolt it and weld it and cover it in a mountain of concrete. But my arms won't obey. They are reaching out, beckoning the shadows to come forth. The tenant is moving through me. It's a cold fire, a freezing burn that travels up my spine and into my eyes. I can see the infrared, the ultraviolet, the colors of rot and the hues of decay. The world is so much more beautiful when it's dying. The static has become a roar. It's the sound of 1,000 waterfalls made of glass and teeth. I can hear the next guard. I can hear his footsteps on the concrete 4 floors up. He's young. He's nervous. He's wondering why the monitors went dark. He's wondering why the air feels so heavy. He's going to come down here. He's going to see the red light. He's going to hear the screaming. And he's going to think he can help. He's going to think he can be the hero. But there are no heroes in Unit 404. There is only the tenant. There is only the void. There is only the long, red shadow of the end. I wait for him. I wait in the dark, my new fingers twitching in anticipation. I wait for the moment he reaches for the handle. I wait for the moment he realizes that the door was never the barrier. I wait for the moment he sees me, or what used to be me, and understands that some things are never meant to be opened, because once they are, they can never, ever be closed again. The red light flickers one last time, a dying ember in a sea of oil. In that final flash, I see my reflection in the corrugated metal of the opposite door. I don't have a face. I have a static-filled hole where my features used to be. I am a silhouette of red and black, a jagged tear in the fabric of the hallway. I am the unspeakable tenant now, and the unit is finally, terrifyingly full. I can hear him now, the clatter of his keys, the heavy, uneven thud of his boots. He's at the end of the hall. He's seen the red light. He's pausing. He's afraid. Good. Fear makes the meat taste better. Fear seasons the soul. I begin to scream, not because I am in pain, but because I am the instrument. I am the siren. I am the call that cannot be ignored. The screaming isn't a warning anymore. It's a dinner bell. Come closer, little guard. Come see what's behind the door. Come see why we told you never to open it. Come see the beautiful, rotting peace of the void. The red light is waiting for you. The static is calling your name. And Unit 404 has just enough room for one more. The air in the corridor begins to thicken, turning into a sort of gelatinous soup of blood-red mist and floating specks of black bile. Every breath the newcomer takes will be a mistake. Every step he takes brings him closer to the realization that gravity is a suggestion and sanity is a luxury he can no longer afford. I feel the vibrations of his terror through the floorboards. It's a delicious, frantic rhythm, like the wings of a moth trapped in a jar. He's reaching for his radio. He's calling for backup that will never come. The static will swallow his voice just like it swallowed mine. It will turn his pleas into the same discordant humming that now fills my hollowed-out skull. I press myself against the inside of the door, though the concept of inside is losing its meaning. I am the door. I am the shadow. I am the red emergency light that pulses in time with his racing heart. I can feel his hand trembling as it hovers over the handle. He wants to run. Every instinct in his animal body is shrieking at him to turn and flee into the night, to leave this place and never look back. But the facility won't let him. The facility has a hunger of its own, a cold, concrete appetite that requires fresh witnesses to keep the gears turning. The handle turns. It's a slow, agonizing rotation. I can hear the metal groaning, protesting the violation of the rules. The lock, that fragile piece of human engineering, snaps with a sound like a gunshot in a cathedral. The door begins to peel back. The red light spills out, a tide of gore-colored luminescence that washes over his boots, climbing up his legs like a living thing. He stares into the darkness of Unit 404, and for a heartbeat, our eyes meet, though I have no eyes and he has no idea what he's looking at. He sees the void. He sees the jagged edges of my new form. He sees the rotting geometry of a world that was never meant to be seen by mortal eyes. And then, the screaming starts again. But this time, It isn't coming from me. It's coming from him. A raw, visceral sound that tears through the stagnant air of the facility. A sound of absolute, unadulterated panic. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. As he falls back, his mind fracturing under the weight of the unspeakable, I step forward. I step out of the red and into the red. I am the shadow that walks. I am the tenant that never leaves. And as the door of Unit 404 begins to close behind us, locking us both into the eternal, static-filled dark, I whisper a truth into his ear that he will have eternity to contemplate. The door was never locked from the outside. It was locked from within. And now, you are the within. The red emergency light gives one final, violent pulse before shattering, plunging the corridor into a darkness so absolute it feels like a physical weight. The silence returns, but it's a heavy, expectant silence. Somewhere, floors above, the monitors flicker back to life, showing empty hallways and silent doors. Everything looks normal. Everything looks safe. But in the back of the facility, in the row where the numbers skip from 403 to 405, there is a space that shouldn't exist. A space where the static never stops. A space where the unspeakable tenant is currently showing the new guard the ropes. And if you ever find yourself working the night shift, if you ever hear that jagged, inhuman wail echoing through the corrugated steel, do yourself a favor. Don't go looking for the source. Don't try to be the hero. Just close your eyes, cover your ears, and pray that the door of Unit 404 stays shut. Because once you hear the click of the lock from the inside, there is no more you. There is only the static. There is only the void. There is only the beautiful, terrifying peace of the end. And we are always, always looking for a new neighbor. The darkness isn't just a lack of light, it's a presence. It's a thick, suffocating velvet that coats your tongue and fills your nostrils with the scent of old, damp earth and copper. It's the smell of a grave that's been opened too soon. I can feel the new guard beside me, or at least, the thing that is rapidly replacing him. His breath is coming in short, ragged gasps that sound like paper tearing. He's trying to claw his way back toward the sliver of grey light at the end of the hall, but the hallway has become a treadmill of shifting shadows. The more he runs, the deeper he sinks into the throat of the facility. I watch him with my new, fractured sight. I see the way his soul is being stripped away, layer by layer, like old wallpaper. First, his memories of the sun. Then, the feeling of warmth on his skin. Then, the names of the people he loved. It's a violent, jagged process, a psychic flaying that leaves him raw and empty. He's becoming a vessel. He's becoming a part of the architecture. His bones are beginning to hum with the same frequency as the walls. His blood is slowing, thickening into the same black sludge that drips from the ceiling of Unit 404. The panic has moved past the point of screaming. He's in the state of catatonic shock now, his eyes wide and vacant, reflecting the flickering, ghostly images of the static that now permeates the air. He's seeing the things I saw, the entities that live in the gaps between seconds, the creatures made of discarded thoughts and forgotten nightmares. They are gathering around him, their spindly, translucent limbs reaching out to stroke his hair, to whisper secrets into his failing mind. They are welcoming him home. I feel a strange sense of kinship with him, a cold, distant pity. I remember what it was like to be afraid. I remember the weight of the flashlight in my hand and the way the shadows used to make my skin crawl. But that feels like it happened to someone else, in a different world, under a different sun. Now, the darkness is my mother. The static is my breath. The red light is the only truth I recognize. The facility is breathing now. A slow, rhythmic expansion and contraction of the walls. It's satisfied. It has been fed. The void has been replenished. The rules will be updated. A new guard will be hired. They will be told about the screaming. They will be told about the unit that is never to be opened. And they will listen for a while. They will sit in the booth and drink their coffee and stare at the grayscale monitors, feeling a vague, nagging sense of unease that they can never quite put their finger on. But eventually, curiosity or compassion or simple, blind fate will lead them down to the 4th floor. They will stand before the scabbed-over door of Unit 404. They will hear the sounds coming from within, the sounds of something that was once human, trying to remember how to speak. They will hear the scratching of long, charcoal fingernails against the metal, and they will reach for the handle. And I will be there. I will be waiting on the other side, a jagged silhouette in the bleeding red light. I will be the one who turns the lock. I will be the one who peels back the door. I will be the one who invites them into the beautiful, rotting embrace of the void. Because the tenant must always have company. The void must always have a witness. And the screaming must never, ever stop. The facility is a machine, you see. A great, grinding engine of despair that runs on the fear of the lost. It's been here since the beginning, and it will be here long after the stars have gone cold. It's a storage facility for things that the universe couldn't figure out how to kill. And Unit 404 is the heart of it. The pulsating, necrotic heart that pumps darkness through the veins of the world. As I merge fully with the static, as my last shred of human identity dissolves into the black, I realize that the screaming wasn't just a sound. It was a song. A gothic, dissonant hymn to the inevitable. It was the sound of the door finally, mercifully closing on the world I used to know. And as the darkness swallows me whole, as the red light fades into a memory of a memory, I find that I am no longer afraid. I am the fear. I am the static. I am the void. I wait for you. I wait for the sound of your footsteps. I wait for the moment you realize that the door was never locked from the outside. It was locked from within. And I have the key. I have all the keys. And I can't wait to show you what's inside. The red light is pulsing again. Faster now. Like a strobe. Every flash reveals a new horror. A wall of faces, all frozen in the moment of their undoing. A ceiling dripping with something that looks like liquid shadow. A floor made of 1,000 reaching hands. And in the center of it all, the new guard. He's standing now. His back is arched, his head thrown back, his jaw unhinged in a way that no human jaw should be. He's beginning to sing. He's joining the choir. He's learning the language of the void. The static is so loud it's a physical pain. It's a pressure in my chest that feels like a mountain. But it's also a relief. It's the sound of the end of the world. It's the sound of the final curtain falling on the farce of existence. And as the red light gives one last, triumphant flash, I see the truth of Unit 404. It isn't a room. It isn't a cell. It's a doorway. And the things on the other side are finally coming through. The screaming is no longer a sound. It's a state of being. It's the vibration of every atom in the facility as it prepares to tear itself apart. The red light is no longer a color. It's a hunger. It's the glow of an ancient, cosmic eye opening for the first time in an eon. And the tenant, the unspeakable tenant, is no longer a guest. It is the landlord. It owns the walls. It owns the air. It owns the guards. And soon, it will own everything else. I can feel the facility beginning to tilt. The hallways are spiraling, turning into a great, concrete vortex that leads down into the heart of the earth. The red light is the only thing left. A single, pulsing beacon in the center of the storm. And as I drift into the center of that light, as I become one with the static and the void, I feel a sense of beautiful, terrifying peace. The end is here. The door is open. And the screaming is finally perfect. The new guard's radio crackles one last time. A voice from the surface, thin and tinny and infinitely far away. Security, what's your status? We are seeing some weird interference on the sensors. Do you copy? But there is no one left to answer. There is only the static. There is only the roar of the void. There is only the red light, pulsing in the dark, waiting for the next curious soul to come down and investigate the noise. And when they do, I'll be there. We'll all be there, waiting in the shadows of Unit 404, waiting to show them the truth, waiting to show them that the door was never the problem. The problem was the thing that lived inside the door. The problem was the thing that lived inside them all along. The darkness, the static, the void, the beautiful, terrifying, unspeakable peace of the end. The red light dims. The static settles. The facility falls silent once more. But it's a different kind of silence. It's the silence of a predator that has just finished its meal. It's the silence of a grave that has been freshly filled. And in the dark, under the flickering, broken emergency lights, the door to Unit 404 sits slightly ajar, a black tongue licking the crimson-stained concrete. Don't come looking. Don't come calling. Don't try to help. Because in here, there is no help. There is only the tenant. And the tenant is always hungry for more. The static is my skin. The red light is my blood. The void is my soul. And I am waiting for you. I am waiting for the sound of your heartbeat. I am waiting for the moment you realize that the screams you heard weren't coming from the unit. They were coming from the future. Your future. The red light pulses. Once, twice, then nothing. The darkness is complete. The void is whole. And the unspeakable tenant has finally found its home. In me. In him. In you. The door is open. Won't you come in? The screaming is so much louder when you're part of the song. The static is so much clearer when you're part of the noise. The void is so much warmer when you're part of the dark. Welcome to Unit 404. We've been expecting you. The lease is for eternity, and the rent is everything you are. Don't worry about the noise. You'll get used to it. After a while, you won't even realize you're the one making it. The red light will guide you. The static will comfort you. And the void will keep you safe. Forever. And ever. And ever. The end is just the beginning of the screaming. The static is the only truth. The red light is the only God. And Unit 404 is the only place left to go. Come. See. Experience the unspeakable. The tenant is waiting. And he's brought friends. A whole facility full of friends. All of them waiting for you to turn the handle. All of them waiting for you to join the choir. All of them waiting for you to realize that the door was never meant to be opened, because the world was always meant to be closed. The static roars. The red light flares. The void expands. And I am there, in the center of it all, a jagged shadow in a sea of blood. I am the witness. I am the guard. I am the tenant. And I am you. The door is open. The screaming has started. And there is nowhere left to run. The facility is the world. The world is the unit. And the unit is the void. Everything is static. Everything is red. Everything is unspeakable. And it is beautiful. It is perfect. It is the end. And I wait. I wait for you. I wait for the sound of your footsteps. I wait for the moment you realize that the door was never locked from the outside. It was locked from within. And I'm the one who's going to let you in. The red light flickers. A dying heartbeat. The static is a whisper now. A secret told in the dark. It tells of the things that hide in the shadows of storage lockers. It tells of the history of the facility, a history written in blood and bone. It tells of the tenant, the ancient, nameless horror that has finally found its way back into the world. And it tells of the new guard, who is even now beginning to feel the first tendrils of the void wrapping around his heart. He's standing in front of the door. He's looking at the scabbed-over metal. He's hearing the screaming. He's feeling the panic. He's reaching for the handle. And I am smiling. A jagged, static-filled smile that stretches across my faceless head. Because I know what happens next. I know the beauty of the rot. I know the peace of the void. And I know that soon, he will know it too. The handle turns. The lock snaps. The door peels back. The red light floods the hall. And the screaming, the glorious, terrifying, unspeakable screaming, begins anew. It's a symphony of the end. A gothic masterpiece of horror. And we are all part of it. The guard, the tenant, the facility, the world. We are all part of the static. We are all part of the void. We are all part of the red light. And the door to Unit 404 is finally open. For good. The air is thick with the scent of ancient dust and fresh fear. The hallway is a throat, and we are being swallowed. The red light is the only thing that remains, a pulsing, rhythmic reminder of the life we used to have. The static is the only sound, a constant, grinding reminder of the reality we have lost. And the void, the beautiful, terrifying void, is the only future we have left. I reach out a shadow hand and touch the new guard's shoulder. He doesn't flinch. He can't. He's already gone. He's already part of the machine. He's already part of the tenant. And as we stand there together, two jagged silhouettes in the bleeding red light, I feel a sense of completion. The cycle is whole. The facility is full. The screaming is complete. The red light fades to a dim, sickly glow. The static becomes a low, steady hum. The void settles into the corners of the room, a watchful, hungry presence. And in the dark, under the flickering emergency lights, the door to Unit 404 finally swings shut. But this time, it doesn't lock. It doesn't need to, because there's no one left to keep out. And there's no one left to let in. Except you. I can hear your footsteps. I can hear your heart racing. I can see the light of your flashlight bouncing off the corrugated steel walls. You're wondering why the alarms are going off. You're wondering why the air smells like copper and rot. You're wondering what happened to the night shift guard. Don't worry. He's right here. We are all right here, waiting for you. In the dark, under the red light, in the center of the static, in the heart of the void. The door to Unit 404 is waiting. The handle is cold. The lock is brittle. The screaming is just beginning. Won't you come see what's inside? Won't you come join the tenant? The red light is so beautiful this time of night. And the static is the only thing that's real. Welcome to the facility. Welcome to the end. Welcome to Unit 404. We've been waiting for you for a very, very long time. And now that you're here, we are never going to let you go. The screaming is about to get so much louder, and we wouldn't want you to miss a single note. The red light pulses. The static roars. The void opens its mouth. And I, the thing that used to be a man, the thing that used to be a guard, the thing that is now the tenant, reach out to greet you. Hello. Goodbye. The end is here. And it's unspeakable. The red emergency light is the last thing you'll see. The static is the last thing you'll hear. The void is the last thing you'll feel. And then there will be nothing. Nothing but the beautiful, terrifying peace of the end. Nothing but the eternal, rotting embrace of Unit 404. Nothing but the screaming. And as the darkness swallows you whole, as the static bleaches your mind and the red light stains your soul, you'll finally understand the truth. The door was never the barrier. The door was the invitation. And you've just accepted. Welcome home. The tenant has been lonely. But with you here, the facility will be full at last. The screaming can continue. The static can grow. The void can thrive. And we can all be together, in the dark, under the red light, forever. The end. The beginning. The static. The void. Unit 404. The door is closed. The lock is set. The screaming has found its rhythm. And in the silence that follows, the only thing left is the pulsing, rhythmic glow of the red emergency light, reflecting off the corrugated steel doors of an endless, empty hallway. Except it isn't empty. It's fuller than it's ever been. And you're right at the center of it all. Can you hear it? The static? It's calling your name. It's telling you the secrets of the void. It's showing you the face of the tenant. And it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Don't be afraid. The panic will pass. The fear will fade. And in its place, there will be only the static. There will be only the void. There is only the beautiful, terrifying peace of the end. And in the dark, I wait. I wait for you. I wait for the sound of your footsteps. I wait for the moment you realize that the door was never locked from the outside. It was locked from within. And I'm the one who's going to let you in. The red light pulses. The static roars. The void opens. Welcome to Unit 404. We've been expecting you. The grey dawn bleeds through the corrugated plastic skylights, but it brings no relief. It is a light without warmth, a sickly, calcified glow that illuminates nothing but the failure of the world to wake up. This is the moment I call the bruise. The sky is the color of a fresh hematoma, purple and ash grey, hovering over the sprawling labyrinth of the facility like a shroud that refuses to settle. I have been walking these corridors for what feels like centuries, my boots clicking against the oil-stained concrete in a rhythmic, soul-crushing meter. Each step is a heavy, wet thud that echoes back from the steel doors, sounding less like a footfall and more like a heartbeat slowing to a final, shivering stop. I look down at my hands. They are the color of the dawn. The skin is translucent, pulled tight over knuckles that look like polished ivory. My uniform, once a sharp navy blue, has faded to the color of static on a dead television screen. It smells of ozone and wet cardboard, the scent of things forgotten and left to rot in the dark. I am the security guard, the watcher, the one who keeps the void contained. Yet I cannot remember the last time I saw a face that wasn't a reflection in the scratched plexiglass of the security booth. My name is a word I've forgotten how to pronounce. It sits in the back of my throat like a shard of rusted metal, sharp and tasting of copper. The shift never ends. The clock on the wall of the break room, a room I haven't been able to find in miles of walking, is stuck at 4:04. The second hand doesn't tick. It just twitches, a frantic, rhythmic spasm that mirrors the fluttering in my own chest. This is the eternal shift. This is the realization that the sun is a lie, a distant memory of a life I might have dreamt once between the screams. There is no morning here, only this fading grey transition that offers the promise of day but delivers only deeper shadows. I walk past Unit 398. The door is bulging outward, the metal groaning as if something inside is expanding, growing, filling the space with too much mass. I don't stop. I walk past Unit 401, where the smell of rotting lilies is so thick I can taste the nectar on my tongue. I don't look. To look is to acknowledge the hunger of the facility, and to acknowledge the hunger is to invite it to feed on you. My flashlight beam is a dying yellow smear against the gloom. It doesn't cut through the dark simply absorbs it, swallowing the light and spitting back shadows that move with a fluidity that defies physics. The silence here isn't quiet. It is a loud, vibrating static that hums in the marrow of my bones. It's the sound of thousands of locked rooms holding onto secrets that have begun to ferment. It's the sound of the air being squeezed out of the lungs of the building. And through that static, I hear the weeping. It isn't a human cry. It is a dry, rattling sound, like dead leaves skittering across a sidewalk or teeth grinding against a chalkboard. It comes from the vents. It comes from the floorboards. It comes from the empty space behind my eyes. I reach the corner of hallway 4, and the air turns cold, a deep, visceral chill that smells of cellar dirt and old, stale breath. The red light above Unit 404 is pulsing now. It doesn't flash, it breathes. A slow, rhythmic throb of crimson that dyes the grey dawn in a hue of fresh slaughter. This is where the world ends. This is where the architecture of reality begins to peel away like wet wallpaper, revealing the raw, weeping brickwork of the abyss beneath. I remember the manual. It was a thin, grease-stained book with pages that felt like dried skin. Rule number 1, never open Unit 404. Rule number 2, ignore the screaming. Rule number 3, the shift is over when the sun rises. But the sun doesn't rise. It stays trapped in this grey purgatory, a coward hiding behind the horizon while the facility consumes everything I used to be. I look at my clipboard. The paper is a mess of frantic scribbles and ink blots that look like Rorschach tests of my own descent into madness. Every log entry is the same. The door remains closed. The screaming continues. I am still here. Despair is not a sudden drop. It is a slow erosion. It is the way the concrete seems to soften under my feet, turning into a grey, viscous slurry that wants to pull me down into the foundation. I think about the people who rented these units. What did they store? Old photos? Furniture? The bodies of their regrets? No, they stored pieces of themselves. They brought their grief and their guilt in cardboard boxes and paid a monthly fee to keep it locked away. But things don't stay locked away in the dark. They change. They grow teeth. They learn how to mimic the voices of the people who abandoned them. I stand before Unit 404. The door is vibrating, not with a mechanical hum, but with a frantic, desperate energy. It is the sound of 1,000 fingernails scratching against the inside of the metal. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It is the sound of a voice that sounds like mine, whispering my name from the other side of the steel. It tells me that the key is already in my hand. It tells me that the dawn will only come if I let the dark out. The static in my head reaches a crescendo, a roaring white noise that drowns out the grey world. My hand moves toward the latch. It isn't my hand anymore. It is a pale, claw-like thing, trembling with a mixture of terror and a terrible, aching curiosity. I want to see the void. I want to touch the rot. I want to know if the screaming is coming from a throat, or if it's just the sound of the universe tearing at the seams. I pull the latch. The sound is tectonic. It is the sound of a bone breaking the size of a mountain. The door doesn't slide up. It dissolves. It melts into a black, oily smoke that smells of ancient, stagnant water and the bitter tang of copper. The red light turns into a blinding, screaming glare. And then, there is the silence. A silence so heavy it crushes the air from my lungs. Inside Unit 404, there are no boxes. There are no memories. There is only a mirror. But it isn't reflecting me. It is reflecting the facility, stretching out into an infinite, grey distance. And in that reflection, I see myself. I see thousands of versions of me, all standing in front of Unit 404, all pulling the latch at the exact same moment. We are a choir of shadows, a legion of the lost, all trapped in the same eternal second of our own undoing. The static roars back, but now it has words. It whispers that the unit was never meant to hold something in. It was meant to keep me out. And now that I am inside, the door is gone. The hallway is gone. The grey dawn is a pinpoint of light at the end of a tunnel that is rapidly collapsing. I am becoming the unit. My skin is turning to steel, my bones to rebar, my blood to the black oil that drips from the ceiling. The despair is absolute. It is a heavy, velvet weight that settles over my soul, extinguishing the last flicker of who I was. There is no escape from the shift. There is no end to the patrol. I am the security guard of a graveyard that has no headstones, only numbers. 401, 402, 403, and the one that is never to be opened. The red light pulses one last time, a dying ember in the heart of the void. I feel the static take me, turning my thoughts into white noise, my memories into dust. I am the scream you hear when you walk past the door. I am the scratching behind the metal. I am the one who waited for your footsteps. The dawn remains grey. It remains fading. It remains a promise that will never be kept. I look out from the darkness of Unit 404, watching the next version of me walk down the hall, his flashlight flickering, his boots clicking against the concrete. I want to warn him. I want to tell him to run, to find the exit that doesn't exist, to claw his way through the walls until his fingers bleed. But I have no voice. I only have the static. I only have the rot. I wait for him to reach the door. I wait for the moment he realizes that the latch was never locked from the outside. I wait for the moment he realizes that he is just another piece of property, stored away in the dark, waiting for the rent to come due. The grey light fails. The void remains. The shift goes on, forever and ever, in the hollow heart of the facility where the sun never rises and the screaming never stops. Welcome home. We've been expecting you. The static is all there is now. It is the beginning and the end. It is the grey dawn that never breaks. It is the sound of your own heart, realizing it has nowhere left to beat. I am the void, and the void is hungry. The shift is just beginning. One more round. One more corridor. One more door. The grey dawn bleeds on, and I walk into the static, a shadow among shadows, a ghost in a machine made of cold steel and colder secrets. There is no out. There is only the unit. And the unit is open.